Okay, thank you. Nice to be here. So this is going to be an overview of what we call the DAVSC, or Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant Workshop. And it's the PMI's approach, at least with Disciplined Agile, for agility at scale. So I'm going to go through it. This is a little bit about me. My background, as you can see from some of these books I've co-written, is technical to start with Design Patterns Explained and Essential Skills for the Agile Developer. But I've been in Lean and Scrum and Agile for a long time. Lean Bond was a term we used at Net Objectives, which was a hybrid of basically Kanban and Lean. It was not quite the Kanban method, but more based on Lean thinking. And I'm also very familiar with SAFe, so if you are trying to do a SAFe implementation and have a concern there, you might shoot me an email. We have a way to do SAFe. It's not a course yet, but there are some ideas on another webinar about how to use FLEX, as we call it, the system in SAFe. So the last 20 years, I've been working on Agile or Agile at scale, a combination of both. And you'll hear me say Agile at scale and not scaling Agile, because we don't start at the team and then go up. It's more of a holistic approach that we'll see. Okay. So the question is, what is the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant Workshop? And it has an interesting history. It's really based on what we call a job task analysis. In other words, Net Objectives started working on Agile at scale around 2005, and we had some pretty good success with it. And we studied what would it take for a person trying to improve the ability of an organization to deliver value. What do they have to do? In other words, what's their job? What are the different things they need to know? So that's where we started. How do you have people know how to do things? Well, what we created was a system that supports that. So it's not enough to just say, these are the things you have to do. You have to give tools and guidance and ideas and concepts to be able to do it. And that's where I came up with the system I call FLEX, Flow for Enterprise Transformation. And it is the heart of the DAVSC. So FLEX is kind of the tool, the system, and the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consulting Workshop is the workshop, basically. DAVSC teaches how to use FLEX and how to design it. Now, there's additional things which I'm not going to show today, but we use virtual boards, primarily now Miro, but any other ones can do it. So what we have is, first of all, Disciplined Agile is agnostic. This means it comes really from what I call the laws and principles of knowledge work. So we can apply it pretty much wherever we want to. Excuse me. Disciplined Agile focuses on what an organization wants to accomplish, identifies the challenges that are in the way and how to overcome them. So it's not a preset solution, but it's helping organizations do what they need. Now, I'm going to talk first about what's needed. And that might sound a little funny, because I'm supposed to be talking about the DA approach. But again, remember what Disciplined Agile FLEX is doing is it's looking to see what is needed, and then is a system to accomplish that. So if we talk about what's needed to happen, then that's basically what we're going to do. And it's important to understand that, because most systems at scale actually start with a preset solution. We want to start with what are you trying to do, and what is the solution you're going to achieve? So the first thing you need to know is what is the problem? What I call the inherent problem that we have. And this is kind of a common organizational structure. There's somebody here at the top, people report to them, people report to those. And it's kind of hierarchical. And it leads to, when this happens, these silos of different groups. And this is kind of natural. And it also has managers look to see, how are their people doing? Are they properly utilized? Are they being productive? Are they doing quality work? Are they working on the right things? Now, that seems very natural, but it turns out that's not actually what we need to have happen. And this is why I call it the basic problem, is we're working in a structure and trying to make work in a particular structure be better when it's the wrong structure. It's the wrong way to manage things. Because if we consider the nature of our work, what we have is our work cuts across the organization. The orange arrows represent getting approval. So sometimes things stop, get approval from some manager. And of course, there's more than one or two things going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. And this is an oversimplified example because these lines all cross and they go backwards and it's a real mess. So what we find is, because we have this hierarchy and then we have the work cutting across it, product managers and managers are in conflict with each other because they're trying to get the same people working on different things. And this causes a lot of confusion and different messages to people. So our inherent problem is we manage this way and our workflows that way. And we have to address this. We have to understand this because we need to see that when we're trying to apply some approach to fix things, that we have to fix this issue right here. In fact, I don't know of anybody else who deals with this, with the exception of another system called TameFlow by Steve Tendon. It's funny I mentioned him since he's not with the PMI. But I like mentioning things at work, and I don't like to say untruths. It'd be a lie to say we're the only ones that address this, but I would say we're the only ones that are kind of from a big organization. Steve's an individual, very smart guy. But except for him, I don't know of anybody else who attends to this issue, and that's important to recognize. So what we want to do is, if this is the case, we need to shift our attention from managing people to managing this workflow. This is a basic lean concept, and it's very important to recognize, okay? And in most organizations, no one is managing this. No one is managing the value. They're busy managing the people. Now, if you stop for a second, this is in conflict with Agile. Agile says people need to self-organize. We shouldn't have to manage our people. We should be able to trust them if we set up the right structure within which they can work. So what we're learning here is that we need to set up the right environment for people to work so work flows across the organization. This is a main tenet of lean. Now, to be clear, this idea that comes from the customers goes across the organization. Again, it is not linear like this. This is just to keep it a simple diagram. This is the value stream. The value stream is actually the work. That's what we want to focus on. Now, there are people who are working in the value stream, but it's important to realize that lean suggests just talking about the value stream as the work. This is important because that's where our focus needs to be, because we can improve the value stream. We trust our people, okay? So a little more formal definition is a value stream is the set of actions that take place to add value to a customer from the initial request through realization of value by the customer. We tend to call this concept to consumption. A value stream always begins and ends with a customer. Of course, the customer can be somebody inside the organization. But it always is on their behalf and always ends with them. And that's important because that's where our focus wants to be. And again, it's important to think about it as the work, not the people doing the work, although there are people who are doing the work. Because here, let's look at this. If we look in a company and we say, oh, how are the people doing in this value stream? We will see they're quite busy. But the work itself isn't busy. I know that sounds funny. Work is just work, right? But if you follow the work, you'll see the work comes in and then it waits for someone to be available. Then it goes to somebody else and it waits for them to be available. And the reason is because in most companies, people are not managing the workflow. Again, they're managing the people. So the people are working on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. So most of the time they're busy, but if something new comes in, you have to wait. Just reflect for a moment yourself on how many times you needed somebody to help you and you had to wait for them. So then you go on to something else. And then when they come back to you, they wait on you. And, it's a waiting game. It's usually work waits most of the time, actually. And this is why small projects take a long time. But it's actually worse than this, because when we think about how much of the time a piece of work is moving forward, it's actually a large percentage, usually well more than half, upwards of 70, 80, 90%. But you wouldn't know, or most companies wouldn't, because they aren't managing it, okay? Nobody manages this. Now, this is really bad. Not only working on 3 things takes 3 times as long, because you're only spending a third of your time. When work waits, consider what happens when work starts and stops, starts and stops, starts and stops. Now, people think multitasking is the bad thing, but multitasking only costs us 10, 20% of our efficiency. But when work gets delayed between getting requirements and using them, when two groups get out of sync and we discover it in integration, and it's been a long time, the amount of extra work that's created by rework, or because our feedback is slow, so we do things that weren't of value, the amount of extra work can be tremendous. I mean, people spend actually more time doing extra work and rework than they do the real work. So removing delays in the value stream is critical in order to reduce the extra work they create. Now you might start seeing why I said I wanted to start with our problem and what we have to do, because already I've identified that we have to focus on the work that runs across the organization, and that what we want to attend to is removing delays. So we're not trying to go faster. Sometimes people talk about lean as faster. I always, in my mind, some credibility is lost, because lean is not about faster work. It's about removing delays, and you get faster delivery. Faster delivery is good to say, but not faster work. We're not working faster. So DAVSC is really a value stream management workshop, because we're going from the start of the value stream through the organization and back to it. So it's based on the value stream. Again, very few approaches I know of are. Okay. So if you look at this picture here, we can see that road on the left side is pretty well utilized. That's not what we want. We don't want utilization. And if we think in terms of utilization, say I was the CIO or CTO and somebody comes to me and says, Al, I need something to happen. And I would say, well, look, we're busy. They might come to me and say, no, here's a spot. Wow, you got another one. You got all this extra capacity. But that's kind of ridiculous. You really don't get more done. You really slow things down. So what we want to look at is throughput. So this is another shift. We go from utilization to throughput, and that's an important piece. That's what we want to do. Okay, so what does value stream management tell us to do? Okay, basically attend to the value stream to increase flow. This is the idea. Look at the people doing the work, see how they're organized. Because a lot of times the work going back and forth and back and forth and between teams is problematic. So we want to see how they work together, not just what are the dependencies, but are there better ways to work? And what is the size and decomposition of the work itself? Because smaller items tend to go and get done faster. Plus, you can get value quicker if you have, say, like a 6-month project and you break it in half. You get half the value in half the time. The rest of it, the other half the time, you get the whole thing done. But that's an important piece. Okay, so let's take a look at this, because this is the other thing. So basically, again, I'm showing you what has to happen. The DA FLEX system focuses on this and gives you tools to do this. So even though I may not go into detail, we're going to talk about the FLEX system has this ability to look at delays and manage them, and has the ability to work on what I'm about to show you. The standard way of doing work, or the old way before Agile, was we'd like complete requirements, design completed. Now, I know I'm talking in terms of software like IT, but it's the same idea even if it's a big construction project or something. You want to do it in stages, get some value. In software, you have more opportunity to do it, but it's actually something you can do anywhere. So what we do is, if we build the thing and build it until it's finally delivered, at the time we get it all done, we have value at that point. But can we build it in steps? That'd be a better idea. I'm going to show that. Because the problem here is if you make a mistake and you build the wrong thing, you don't discover it until the very end. It's kind of a joke. In the physical world, you would notice it. But I saw a cartoon once where it showed this pharaoh talking to his engineer, and in the background, this big cube. It's got a big cube, not a pyramid, but a cube. And the pharaoh says to the engineer, did I say cube? I meant pyramid. See, in the physical world, you can see this, but when you're doing knowledge work, you typically can't see this. So it's too late to pivot, too late to change. The other thing about this is because there's all this work being demanded to be done, it's easier to ask for something up front by just saying, well, I need it. There's no justification required to say I need it. Later, you have to go through some change control board. So people learn to just pile everything on. So you get these really big things. So we have bad habits here. So what happens if we build it in increments? What if we build a little and deliver it, build a little and deliver it, build a little and deliver it, and keep this going? Notice we're getting value as we go. And we actually might not even do those last two things because notice they're getting us very little extra value for the effort. Now, this is not foolproof. We could make a mistake early on here as well. But then we just lose this amount of work and hopefully we'll have learned how to do things well. So again, this is how Flex teaches us how to build things in small steps across the value stream. We can quickly pivot if we need to. Okay. Now, there's another aspect to this that's very important. Why do you get something done simply? Well, consider this building the system all at once and ask yourself, what is the risk curve? Is it like go down over time reasonably, or does it go down as soon as you start working? Or does it take a while to go down until you deliver it or almost deliver it? What happens when you're building incrementally? I would suggest the curves kind of look like this. These are the risk curves. Because here you don't really know if you're building the right thing until just before release. You've shown it to some people, and that's good. But here, as soon as you release one of these things, you know pretty well if you're on target or not. You still have some adjustments to be made, but you're more or less on target that way. So that's a good thing. Okay, now be clear, delivering incrementally is not a reason to deliver less, it's a reason to deliver sooner. In other words, you don't wait 6 months to deliver the whole thing, you might deliver a little bit every month, if you can. You cannot always deliver incrementally, we know that. If you're writing a flight control system for an airplane, say, you can't say, oh, well, let's get it to turn left in the next 2 weeks and then we'll get it to turn right. No, that does not work. But you can usually find some incremental, either by function, by market, geography, whatever, okay? So we want to increase flow. We want to organize team around products and services so that they can be built incrementally. You've probably heard this, align people, fund value streams. This is the idea. You get people working on particular products. It provides value creation structures that can eliminate dependencies, not just accommodate them. What do I mean by value creation structures? This is not a term that I made up or Flex made up. It means how are your people organized? I first heard it from a book called Organize for Complexity, quite a good book. Now, if you're familiar with SAFe, I'll just throw this in to connect. They call what they organize Agile release trains. And Agile release trains are a good first step, but Agile release trains mostly accommodate dependencies. There are dependencies between the teams. You've got all the people there, and it does some helping eliminate them, but it doesn't go all the way. Flex has methods to actually reorganize the teams in much more flexible ways. It can start with big trains, but it can get them smaller with fewer dependencies. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of the specifics to give you a taste of what we're talking about. Flex, the DA/VSC workshop's a 3-day workshop. A lot of it is hands-on and lab and stuff. Most of it is actually we're teaching you the concepts. And I'm mostly telling you here what needs to happen. I'm going to give you a couple of key concepts to give you a sense that, yes, I'm not just saying we can do it. I'll let you know what we do and how. And then I'll pause after this short section. I'll pause for questions. And then we'll pick back up and I'll finish it and I'll pause for questions again. So most people know what a minimum viable product is, okay? Smallest piece of work used to validate an hypothesis about a potential product. In other words, we're not really sure if we have a product or not. We hope we do. It's geared toward these initial products or services as well, where we want to verify that it's viable. So we do a little bit. It's usually a small team. Maybe I should say smallish team. I could have 20, 30 people, but they're dedicated to this. It's not usually spread across the organization, although you may need to include people across the organization. So if you think about this, MVPs are not the thing you're building most of the time if you're in a large organization. Most of the time, you're actually enhancing products. And most of the time, those enhancements require a variety of people. So we want to ask ourselves, are MVPs really what we want to be using when we're doing a product enhancement of something we already know, and now we want to extend it and make it better? Okay, so the question is, what do you use when you're an established company? It's an enhancement. Multiple teams are required to build it. Notice that this does not sound like an MVP fits. That's because an MVP doesn't fit here. Now, some approaches are using MVPs here, but it's hand-waving. It's not really the right way to do it. And in my opinion, has kind of detracted from the value of the concept of the MVP because it's gotten to mean any small increment. And we want to recognize MVPs are useful when you're investing in building something new, and you want something else when you're extending something. So we want to stop this MVP misuse to where it's doing everything. And I'm going to introduce the concept of the minimum business increment. This terminology is new. We created it at Net Objectives, I don't know, 2008, I think, something like that. But its heritage comes from the minimum marketable feature of Denny and Cleland Wang in the book called Software by Numbers. It's not the same thing as the minimum marketable feature because we've extended it over the years. It actually now has a lot of other pieces to it. It's not just the smallest increment that you could build and deploy. It also includes information about who will do it and how you'll do it. So it becomes kind of a container so everybody knows who's needed for an MBI to be built. That's what we call these minimum business increments. Okay, so it's the smallest increment we can build for an internal or external customer. Our focus is on this chunk of value. Now, notice initiatives and epics are really not very good. Initiatives are much bigger than the smallest chunk you can build. Epics will have several of these MBIs in them, and a feature is often not sufficient to deploy, like fast forward on a DVD or turn left on an airplane. Those are features, but they're not sufficient to release. So an MBI is really this chunk that you manage that's about the release itself. And again, most other approaches don't talk about this. It's not about doing less, it's about delivering value sooner. So you might have a 6-month project be a sequence of MBIs to enhance things. And this is important. It also includes all the actions required to manifest. So it includes documentation, includes sales and things of that nature. That's important to recognize. So these MBIs enable us to, we deliver one, then another to implement an initiative, and it enables us to pivot and enables us to align with it. So that's important. Now, I think other popular approaches do not. Again, I've mentioned Tame Flow. They have what they call a move, which is the same idea, MOVE. Okay. I'm going to pause at this point for questions. So are there any questions? Would I look in the chat, or is somebody going to talk to me about the questions? Why don't you ask it in the chat?
Yeah, si tiene alguien de la audiencia unas preguntas para Al, por favor, si la pueden poner en el chat. Yo le traduciría a Al la pregunta del español al inglés del material que hemos visto hasta el momento. I'm requesting for some questions.
I figured.
I have a question.
Please.
While we wait. Since, as you mentioned, the wait time is really important, what kind of improvements do you think we can obtain just by attending to the wait time in teams?
Well, it can be dramatic, and it depends where you are. But if you're, say, doing So it depends on how much time. If you have like a project that takes 6 months, you really should do, and in fact, it's what's called a value stream mapping. We don't do a lot of value stream mapping in the workshop because we actually have a better way to get a sense of what's needed. But if you consider, if you take a 6-month project, ask yourself, how much time would it have taken if you only worked on that project? And very often what takes 6 months would have done a month or maybe 2 months. So you get a lot of extra, you get value delivered a lot quicker this way. Now, some of you might consider and say, yeah, I understand, Al. But if I focus on one project, then I'm going to lower my utilization of people. Notice, by the way, I said don't focus on utilization, but I'm going to lower the utilization of people. And I'll slow down the whole thing. That's what people think. But consider this. Most organizations spend 60 to 80% of their time doing rework, and most of that rework is caused because of delays. Somebody stops something, they don't get feedback, other people go off and make decisions, then you have rework. There's this huge amount of rework in organizations, and the rework occurs because there are misunderstandings, and you could pause and think about this yourself. There is a misunderstanding, and a lot of work is done before the misunderstanding is caught. If you discovered that misunderstanding soon, then you would catch it. You'd have less wasted work, less work done that you rework. So the results can be dramatic, but it's important that you break down the silos so the work doesn't go back and forth and back and forth. I mean, a 10-time improvement is not unheard of. We used to achieve that a lot of times when we went in and consulted with these approaches that Flex is based on. And I'm talking big companies.
Great. We have three more questions in English.
Okay.
Our audience.
So the dependencies are inside the batch of tasks into the sprint, that's small deliverables. How does this deliverable relate to the others? I'm not sure I understand the question, but first of all, you're assuming you're using sprints. You may use sprints, you may use Scrum, you may use Kanban, you may use Flow. The DAVSC enables any of the team methods to be used. And I wouldn't call them inside the batch of tasks. I would say that think about an MBI that's made up of several features. And the question is, how are you building that? Are different teams building a feature each, which wouldn't be too bad, but there'd then be delays integrating them. Now, if you think about it, though, if I have an MBI and I know it's made up of 3 features going to 3 different teams, and if the teams know that they're going to want to compress the time of start to end, in other words, cut out delays, you've probably heard this phrase in Lean called just in time, then these 3 teams would work in coordination with each other to lower the delay and lower the work flow. Now, the question, how does this deliverable relate to the others? The MBIs are your deliverables. This is the other thing that's important. You plan around the MBIs. You plan around the deliverables. You don't plan around stories and features and then combine them. Rather, you look at the big picture and then you see how can people work together. Now, I'm going to the next question. If that didn't answer your question, just ask it again, Yancy, okay? Or make it a little different, say. Okay, how is that working based on MVPs can help with the manage of the value stream? Okay, well, MVPs, interestingly enough, again, if you're using them the way we use them, as this is a small new product we're doing, or it could be a big new product, but we're going to discover it in small steps, then what we want to do there is typically organize a team to build the MVP, and they have full control of their value stream, basically. So delays get lower because they work together working on just the MVP. Now, you can actually do this. I don't think I have a slide on it here, but we have a concept we call the focused solution team, which is when you need more than, say, 8 to 10 people to build something, maybe you get a team of 15, 20 people that is a collection, and all they work on is an MBI together. So just imagine as people focus, it saves time and cuts out delays. Okay, hopefully I answered that. Okay, how does it compare to DevOps? Brilliant question, and thank you so much. DevOps is an integral part of all this. And think about DevOps. It's a great, well, I won't say metaphor because it's actually an example. It's stronger than a metaphor. DevOps is about development teams and ops working together. And what Flex does, it has product management and product ownership and development and DevOps and marketing and documentation all working together. So you could say this is DevOps across the value stream. I've always considered Gene Kim's Phoenix Project. It's a great book, but basically he's focusing on just part of the value stream, the DevOps area. And the whole book was really a lean book in my mind. This was, oh, this is good, really like it, very well done. It's lean though, and part of the value stream. Flex is the whole value stream. What do you think is the best way to align not only the work team, but also the project sponsors? Very good. Well, again, this is important because we tend to talk to people outside of the team from the team perspective. They want to hear, how do you get value delivered quicker, faster, and more of it, the more important things. If you talk to a stakeholder and he's used to projects that could be done in 2 months, taking 6 months, saying, well, instead of working on 3 things and getting them all out in 6 months, we're going to give you 1 thing in 2 months, another thing in 2 months, another thing. So you have to talk to them, not how do the teams work, you have to talk to them what is the advantage to the business? And that's basically how I would do that. And that is basically how the whole thing is designed.
Great,
Okay.
Al. That'll be the 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to do this last one, and then I'm going to start up. I'm in good shape, so I can spend a couple minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so MVPs are really useful to show final users how the project is delivering value after a set of sprints. Yes, I agree. We do the same thing with MBIs. We still build them in slices, even though an MBI might be a few weeks and longer than an MVP where you're doing little slices. But you see, this sentence, actually think about what you said here. And this is one of the flaws in my mind of applying Scrum and SAFe everywhere. If I'm doing an MVP, I may not want to wait 2 weeks to show the customer. I want to show them something maybe every day, every couple of days. I want it to be as quick as possible. Also, people are doing MVPs and they may not be working at the same cadence, the same pace as the people who are working with hundreds of other people. So we have to integrate both flow methods, Kanban methods, and Scrum together, and that's something we do. Okay. So you can think about your questions. I'll come back to them, but I'm going to now continue on. Those are good questions too. Okay. So we want to accelerate value realization. Now what we have here is a picture. This is what's called the plumb bob, and everything aligns to it. This is how carpenters work. Make sure everything is straight. Everything is parallel to this. So one of the advantages of the MBI is we agree to work on those items that we sort based on what's most important. See, minimum business increments are actually things you can sort on value. Remember, epics aren't very good for this. Features aren't very good for this. Epics aren't good for it because not all the epic is delivered. Not all, a feature sometimes can't be delivered. So even though SAFe talks a lot about cost of delay and weighted shortest job first for epics and features, it actually is a non sequitur. Epics, it doesn't make sense because your cost of delay, but I'm not building the whole thing. And with a feature, I may not even be able to deliver it. So we align around these MBIs. This is really what's important. We want to have the value stream with these minimum business increments going through. We organize the teams around products and services. This is the project to product mentality. We have product teams that build things an MBI at a time, basically. And then there are about a half a dozen different structures we use. To be candid, I forget if I'm going to talk about one here or not. But we work on these smaller ones. Okay, so the idea is you organize your teams around your products, and it depends, of course, what your products are and the sizes as to what options you use. Flex has several different options to choose from. Now, what we want to do here is attend to the delays and interactions in the value stream. So these are things we're going to attend to We're going to remove these delays. We're going to identify them, remove the delays. We're not trying to go faster. You need to make work visible so people can see what's heading their way, because otherwise they're not going to be ready for it. So this is what's called explicit workflow and also the explicit work. So these are 4 lean principles that we drive from and use. Okay? We identify and create small valuable items incrementally. I've already mentioned that. We use flow, lean theory constraints to eliminate delays by managing queues, avoiding handoffs and handbacks. Now, we don't teach all of flow, all of lean, all of theory constraints. That would take a couple weeks. But we take some of the key concepts of flow, lean theory constraints. A lot of it's based on flow, which kind of transcends lean a little bit. But lean has a lot of really great stuff in it. Theory constraints tells us to look at the constraint, what's holding us back. So we take the key points of these 3 methods along with concepts of organizational development and use it. Now, our objective is business agility. This is where we're trying to go. Now, what is business agility? We say business agility is the ability to realize highest business value in a shorter amount of time, because remember, we're reducing delays. Think about, again, the value stream from if you go from when it comes in to when it goes out. As we remove the delays, we get the value out quicker. We also eliminate the extra work it caused. So this enables us to do this consistently, sustainably, and with high quality, because we're focusing on the work. Okay, more value quicker, less risk. We've talked about it. Increasing business agility requires the entire value stream. Consider a pipe, and it's blocked at the front or the middle or the end. It's still blocked. People focus on the development teams because that's where the drama is. Also, that's what's easier to fix. But if that's not the cause of your block, fixing it doesn't do you any good. Usually the blockage is up front with portfolio and product management. So when we work in the entire value stream, everybody can see how they relate to each other. We see how product management affects the teams. So we can align and work together. We get better guidance from that. Okay, now here's another key concept that has more or less been forgotten, it seems to me, in the Agile space, is systems thinking. Now, systems thinking means you have to attend to everything. You have to look at the whole system, not just the teams, not just the portfolio, but everything together. So it's this holistic approach to analysis that focuses on how things interrelate and how the systems work together within the context of the larger system. Let's consider this. So people are familiar with airplanes. So let's talk about airplanes. So we could say that an airplane has a body and wings and a tail and engines and a pilot area and all that. But then you could say, oh, well, what part of an airplane is responsible for flight? And it's a ridiculous question because it's how they all interrelate to each other. If you have a working airplane and you want to improve it and you put in bigger engines, but you don't compensate with the wings or the structure of the plane, that might actually destroy the plane. If you add wings without adding stronger engines, etc., it might destroy the plane. It certainly won't go better. So we want to recognize that when we're trying to accomplish something like build some new product, we have to look at it as a whole. This is why we don't scale Agile. We don't take the teams and get them to work and then scale it. That's like saying, oh, we're going to get the engines better. No, you got to look at the whole. This is a very big thing. Now, and if you improve one thing, it actually make other things worse. Local optimizations don't always deliver system-wide improvements, as I've talked about it. There's a great talk about what if Russ Akoff did a TED Talk. Russ Akoff is was one of the great system thinkers. And he talks about what if you had a car convention, you had your best cars, and you took the best parts of the best cars, and you put the best parts of the best cars together, best engine, best transmission, all that, you'd have a pile of junk. Systems are not defined by their pieces. They're defined by the interactions between the pieces. So the DA FLEX system, what we teach in the DA Value Stream Consultant Workshop, is how do these pieces interact with each other. That's very important. And there are patterns in these value streams. This is actually very important. This is something I discovered, I think it was around 2007. I know 2007 because it was before I knew Kanban. I worked with 3 different kinds of companies. I was very lucky that in a 6-week period, I worked with 3 completely different kinds of companies. And I was doing a 2-week assessment. I'd go into one company, do an assessment, then another company, do an assessment. And like one company was a software product company. One company was, they built a product for IT groups, internal rather, finance type stuff. It was an HR product actually. And the third one was just IT. And what I noticed when I did the first assessment, well, there's nothing unusual, I've done those. But when I did the second one, I noticed about 3/4 of what I did in the first one, I could use in the second one. All the drawings, all the where they were, where they had to go, stuff like that. More where they had to go, actually. And I changed the names, but I copied and pasted it and then made adjustments. And then when I went to the third company, it happened again. And it was like, wow, all these people are getting pretty much to the same place. Now, it's not 100% this way. You know, sometimes you have additional constraints. I don't know if you've worked in insurance, but insurance is, especially, you know, state, there are all sorts of county, state commissioners. They really make it hard to plan ahead sometimes, or if you're dealing with hardware. So there are sometimes these additional constraints, but the core of it, without these additional constraints, is surprisingly similar. So we came up with this idea that there are certain specific things you have to do, and we use these patterns. And this is what's really important. And I think this is one of the reasons the DAVSC works so well, is that when you're looking at things across the organization, one way to do it is with value stream mapping. But if you've ever done value stream mapping in large organizations, it takes a lot of time, weeks, because it cuts across the organization. But with this idea we hit with Flex was that there was this ideal value stream. What we want to do is create a fit for purpose approach. We want to avoid being simplistic and not being complex. But what we noticed is that there was this thing I called the idealized value stream. And what this was if you remember, I did those 3 assessments, they all ended up in the same place. It was like, oh, you want to do this and this and this and this and this. Now, how you did it depended on the organization. And the order within which you did it depended on the organization. There are many factors here, which I'll get into in a minute. But the point is, you don't need to map out everything. You can say these are the 30, we call them competencies. I think there are 36 competencies we've identified, and you look to see which ones you're doing well or not, and you see where you are compared to the idealized value stream, and you see your challenges with this assessment. Oh, because if you do these 36 things, you will have some good results, and if you're not, you'll have some problems. So what we do is we identify actions to take. Well, we're not doing this, we're really not doing this, that one's okay, and you identify those areas of improvement. This is the heart of the system. You create this improvement backlog, but you don't take the improvement backlog as the final way to go, because you have to look at the culture. You have to look at leading. I've gone into some companies where product management says, well, we're not changing how we're working, and then you can only work with the development teams. I've had some places say, well, the development team don't want to change, but product management does, in which case you can do product management, and the teams will have an easier job anyway because they're working on smaller things. So you've got to look at what's the opportunity for change. How much can people change? I mean, are they looking for change? Are they open to change? Are they kind of, maybe neutral? Or are they resistant? Some companies are even toxic to change. They push back. They don't want to change. So you create this initial set of actions, but the improvement backlog, as we call it, is tuned to the culture and work and knowledge of the company. And we call it a backlog and not a roadmap because it's a starting point, and then you learn as you go. See, we keep improving. The backlog is done, but it's just, here's what we think we can do. These are these insights or competencies that we have to attend to. We see which ones are causing problems because they're not being done. It's kind of a review of what I've said, but we got to make sure that we may delay some things so we don't overload people. And we take this concept, I forget his name. It was in lean management, Jason Little, I think, yeah. He came up with this idea of minimum viable change. So we can have, like if we're going to put MBIs in, you can put them all in at once, or you can do it in a few stages. And we identify what these changes are, and then you decide 1, 2, 3, what rate do I want to go based on things? What's the pace for implementation? So you might check in with everybody every week, but you may go a lot of them minimum viable changes or not many. Okay. So this improvement backlog is a platform. We continue to use it. You do a few, you update it, you adjust. So we actually become agile in an agile way. Okay. And we keep improving. So this is another very, very important concept. See, a lot of systems say, well, do this to start, and then you'll learn later how to adjust. And we say, no, no, no. We're going to teach you how to make a fit-for-purpose approach, and then that is going to be what you use to continue improving. And that's very important, because a lot of companies, a lot of methods teach you how to start, but they don't teach you how to continue to improve. They teach you how to keep improving following their approach. We teach you how to basically improve your own approach. Now, I'm pretty much done with the DAVSC, but I'm usually asked, how does DA flex? Remember, flex is the engine underneath it. It's like SAFe is the approach, flex is the approach. SAFe has the SAFe program consultant. We have the disciplined agile value stream consultant. So this is engine to engine, so to speak. So how do they compare? Okay. Well, the artifacts used for product management, we use MVPs and minimum business increments. SAFe uses solutions, epics, features, stories, MVPs incorrectly. MVPs are intended for new products. They use it for everything. Sounds good, but it causes confusion. I should say we also have initiatives, of course. We don't use epics. Yeah, we use features and stories. I guess I could put that over here. But I'm saying use for product management. So this isn't like we don't use features or stories. We use these two for product management. We don't just look at, we don't manage a solution. We manage MVPs, MBIs that come from a solution. We have value creation structures where there are about 6 or 7 techniques we teach. They just have ARCs, agile release trains. These are usually bigger than you need. Maybe good starting, but you want to get smaller. We deal with dependencies by first managing them in the way SAFe does, but then we get rid of them by improved value creation structures. Organized around the value stream. SAFe's organized around levels. You start with essential SAFe, then you go up to product, then you go up to portfolio. They don't break the hierarchy. They just have you manage the hierarchy better. We break the hierarchy. Speed at which to start. Adjust according to the company. SAFe's all in all the way. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good thing, but it's not always a good thing. So we tell you how to adjust which is which. Where to start? We take full value streams if you can. Okay, we at least look at it. SAFe pretty much starts at the essential level and goes up, team level. Okay, so I'm going to put up my stuff here. This is how you can contact me. You can go to the Discipline Agile LinkedIn group. This workshop is available, and I'm going to look in the chat for questions. Oh, I guess I'll look in the Q&A for questions. Okay, so if you, I told you to put in the chat, so let me go through that first. Okay. No, so it's not better to introduce the top to bottom. Oh, top to bottom. I would say there's not a better way. Actually, the ideal way is across the value stream, which is not top to bottom, but is across the entire value stream. We're not looking at a top to bottom anymore. We're not looking at the hierarchy. We're looking at the workflow. So we want to look at the entire value stream. And I'm not sure what is the name. What is the name of what? So re-ask that. I'm just reading this. How does Discipline Agile fit on the overall strategy for long-term in order to tailor or adapt several initiatives on a project portfolio and strategy management in order to achieve 10 years vision statements? Okay, great. Well, you really don't know what you're going to be doing 2 years out, let alone 10. But it's a great question, and I'm not saying don't have those vision statements. But those vision statements should therefore be in the idea of strategies and initiatives. And it's interesting. I don't have time to go into it here, but I will mention it. Part of the DAVSC is also something that we call strategic pillars. In other words, what are the things you're investing in? For example, a finance company may be investing in retaining assets. Not a finance company, like an investment company, retaining assets because they get money on a percentage. Customer experience, they want to keep their customers. Compliance, lowering costs. So what we do is we look across the organization. What are the 5, 6 things that a company is investing in that they're trying to improve? And then every MBI gets scored on that, so we can cross filter things that compare things, basically. If you ask questions in anything other than English, I will not be answering that. Okay. In your experience, how easy or difficult is for executive right to adopt MBIs? Really, okay, that's two questions. MBIs are really easy to use, and business folks love it because you're talking to them in terms they understand. Oh, I get it. A 6-month project, but you'll give me half of it sooner and then the other half of it in the time you would have given me the whole thing. See, SAFE actually talks about this too, but they don't give you the mechanism for it. Actually using them on an idealized value stream, you don't actually use the idealized value stream except as a target. It's basically how you create the improvement backlog. The way you align the work team and the project sponsors is what you want to do is the best way is to get your people kind of committed to the different sponsors so they can keep sending the same kind of stuff to the same people. That's what's called funding value streams. Very good idea. It's been around a long time, but only recently has it gotten to be somewhat popular. So that's the best way. If you can't do that, you can use MBIs to do that by knowing, okay, I've got this MBI, it requires these 3 teams, but those 3 teams are going to work on it before they work on the next MBI because it does no good to get part of an MBI done. Remember, minimum business increment, you need the whole thing. What's the difference between MVP and MBI? Okay, I think I got that one right. Again, the MVP is a minimum viable product. You use it when you're creating a new product. You build it in thin slices. That's why it sounds like an MBI. An MBI is when you're building something that already exists and you're enhancing it. So think about that for a second. Don't think about MVP, MBI. Think about those 2 situations. One situation is I've got a small team building tight relationship with the customer, a little bit, real fast, real thin cycles. The MBI, however, or when you have an existing product, I've got probably several teams that need to be involved because it's a big company and this enhancement requires several inputs from different teams. So you have a different problem between the two. MVPs are geared toward the small team building something new and MBIs are geared toward across the board. We have what we call an MBI template in Miro board, virtual board, that lets you manage this. Okay, agile scale and scaled agile. That's a great question. And this is a very important question. So let's say I start with a few Scrum teams and my Scrum teams get pretty good. And now I want them to work together. And in the old days, and I'm talking 2002, 2003, 2004, I was doing Scrum back in 2000. They had this thing they called Scrum of Scrums, and we'd get these teams working together. But that didn't work. In fact, we wrote this up in our book, Lean Agile Software Development, Achieving Enterprise Agility. We said that doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is we've got these teams working well, and now they want to work themselves, and they've learned how to be efficient. You have to really drive not from the teams working together, but what you're trying to build and have them work together to build, like the MBI in this case. So scaling Agile says get a couple of teams and then get more teams, and you're growing from the bottom up. But consider this, the dynamic between individuals and a team. Well, that's almost family, so that's a good dynamic. But now consider the dynamics between teams. That's not family anymore, or remote family. See, those dynamics are quite different. So what we want to do is look at Agile at scale. Agile at scale means I'm looking at the whole group of people required to build things, and then I'm designing how they work from that systems thinking point of view. Going bottom up, scaling Agile is not a systems thinking approach, and that means you leave a lot of things out. Is VSM an old technique? Value stream mapping is an old technique. It comes from Lean. Lean, the idea of the value stream was introduced, I think, by Womack and Jones in Lean Thinking. Still a very good book. Somebody else took it further. There are quite a few classic books. I forget the title of one of them. I've read it, but I don't remember the title. If you say, what's the best value stream book? It'll be like making value stream mapping, making things visible. And value stream mapping is really, really incredibly useful. And I used to use it a lot from 2005 to about 2015 or 2012, I think it was. And then what I found was as we got bigger, it was hard to do because I couldn't get people to get everybody who knew everything about the value stream map. So it was very difficult. That's when I came up with this idealized value stream technique. I just noticed what I did, kind of just because, well, I've done a lot and I'm a pretty good consultant. But I said, okay, what am I doing? And I took it from tacit knowledge to explicit. And I realized, remember when I had those 3 companies and I saw they had the same thing? I realized that instead of doing value stream mapping, I could look at the challenges they're having in terms of what they should be doing. So I really believe this idea of the idealized value stream is a breakthrough that enables you not to have to map the entire value stream. You find the problems, and then where there are problems, you map those segments. And again, this is, I don't know when it came out, but it's old. It's at least 20 years old, probably older than that. No, and I'm just going back. In Epic, it could possibly be an MBI, but only if you needed to release the entire epic. And epics are almost never that. Epics are typically this big concept, and you can split an epic up into several MBIs. Now, I'll give a reference to the MBI that can be forwarded on to you, by the way, where it talks a lot more about MBIs and MVPs with a lot of extra information. But I think we're just about out of time. Man, what timing. We're out of time. I've answered all the questions, so I've done my job.
Perfect.
And I'm going to give it back to you, Enrique.
Thank you very much, Al, for your time and your effort and all the attention that you paid.
My pleasure.
Great.
Join the Disciplined Agile group. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll post some things on the Disciplined Agile group on LinkedIn, like where to get more information on MBIs, where to get more information on systems thinking. I'll post those 2 at least. Okay. Great. Thanks for here. I hope this was useful to y'all.
Thank you, Al.